Thank you, Robin, and thank you everyone for welcoming us in the Netherlands. So, our company basically helps in early identification of cognitive decline and eventually leading to early interventions. But not just early identification of cognitive decline, but also what is behind that. So, whether it's vascular disease, vascular dementia, or Alzheimer's disease, or what could be behind that. And that is what we are really focusing on. So, because of many widespread, highly prevalent risk factors such as vascular risk factors, cardiovascular diseases, lifestyle factors, genetic factors, over time, the brain has neurodegeneration. And this can be because of multiple reasons such as narrowing of blood vessels, deposition of amyloid proteins, and so on. And eventually this leads to irreversible decline, which is dementia. And a lot of people in our population are at risk of developing this cognitive decline. More than 200 million people just in Europe. So it could be anyone. It could be one of us or someone sitting next to you. Or not just our parents, but people among us. And of course, we don't want people to get to the dementia stage. It's a huge burden on society. However, in the past few years, quite a few new interventions, drugs, as well as lifestyle therapies have been launched and shown to be effective for treating dementia in its very early stages. And this is actually very promising because if we can detect cognitive decline and its underlying cause early enough, we can actually intervene to slow down or even prevent the progression to dementia. However, this is where the challenge is. Because it's quite challenging to detect mild cognitive impairment. The symptoms are quite subtle, and like I mentioned, different types of cognitive impairment have different symptoms. So vascular cognitive impairment might have symptoms such as difficulties in decision making or planning, whereas Alzheimer's is linked with memory loss. But even though these symptoms are there, it's not noticeable for people to actually go and test themselves. So like I mentioned, there are already gold standard imaging tests available for dementia, but most people who are actually curable and preventable are not doing these tests because they don't get scanned early enough. So what happens is you have mild symptoms and then you don't do a scan, obviously, which then leads to progression and eventually it's too late. So that is the gap that we want to fill. And that's why I would like to introduce our solution. First solution, Recognize, which is a digital gamified cognitive assessment, which not only detects cognitive impairment, but also differentiates between the vascular type and the Alzheimer's type. Now, why is that important? It's because both these diseases have different interventions. Drugs for Alzheimer's are not applicable for people who have vascular dementia. And if we can't identify the underlying cause, we can't treat it. And hence, this is why Recognize can actually fill this gap by getting that trigger to get people to do the necessary tests and eventually the necessary interventions. But how good is it? So we've tested Recognize, compared it to MRI scans, biomarkers, and it's 90% accurate in picking up early cognitive impairment, which is actually 90% more than zero because no one is currently getting tested at that stage. And how are we able to do that? It's because we've collected a lot of deep data at the Dementia Research Center in Singapore of more than 1,000 subjects with MRI, biomarkers, scans, and we've used this to build our algorithms and our models. And this is currently patent pending. But we are not just stopping at detection of cognitive decline, we are creating a suite of products that can enable early detection and early intervention. So Recognize can then lead to the biomarker tests or the necessary imaging tests that you need to do, after which, if a patient is diagnosed with cognitive decline, we also have our personalized digital therapeutics, which are personalized to the patient's profile. So in a summary, we are creating a pipeline of tools for early detection and intervention of cognitive impairment. And this is possible because of our team and its diverse expertise, combining product, tech, as well as neurology and neuroscience. And we've been backed by various government grants as well as by advisors who are experts in the medtech and biotech ecosystem. But we are not just stopping at developing products. And to share with you the opportunity, like I mentioned, a lot of us are at risk of developing mild cognitive impairment, and this is our target market. We've already identified Southeast Asia as our beachhead market, and now we are looking to expand. And we've not just stopped at identifying, but we've actually launched our product, and it's being actively used in clinics in Singapore to screen people. And GPs are actually very excited to use our solution and screen patients early and help them in their cognitive health. And now we want to bring this to the Dutch market and to globally outside Asia. And hence we are looking for partners who can help us in entering the market here, such as partners in the insurance industry or investors or clinicians, especially GPs or HighTechXL organizations, which is quite similar to what we're doing in Singapore. So I would urge you to make the future dementia-free and to join us. You can contact me, or you can come outside and meet me to get a test and try the app out for yourself. Thank you.
Adnan actually gave a demo of the app in our office on Tuesday, and it sparked a lot of debate. Extremely interesting, super funny to do as well, but also really get you going. So yeah, make sure to meet Adnan after the break. Now your question was towards the audience, so think about how you can help Adnan. But now it's the turn to start here. Patricia, what about you? How did this trigger your mind?
Yeah, well, I was wondering, so you have the app, do you do it daily, or do you do it just once, or how do you track the...
So we have a protocol. Our protocol is usually 3 monthly tracking or 6 monthly tracking, because usually that's the amount of time needed to see any change. And that's shown from the data that we can't really see daily change in cognitive performance, so there's also learning effects and bias that comes into place. So usually 3 monthly or 6 monthly tracking.
And is it something you have in your own phone, or something you do at a GP?
So right now our model is at the GP. So currently we've launched it to be administered in a healthcare or a clinical setting, but we are looking to expand it to the remote kind of setting as well.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the regulatory pathway and where you actually stand? Because that's always, when you hear, medical field, That's always a question that at least comes to my mind. Also thinking about your next step with the app.
Yeah, so from a regulatory perspective, in Singapore it's a Class A medical device, and we've already done that. We're compliant with the regulations and launched it as a Class A device, which is just the cognitive testing bit. But the differential diagnosis bit would be the next step, where we maybe go for a higher classification. And in Europe it's probably a Class 2A, and we haven't started anything for that, so we're still exploring the market first.
Maybe just a small piece of feedback for your pitch. I think you could probably shorten it a little bit, particularly for these 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think these elements are really crucial, that you actually show that for Singapore you already have kind of a clearance. Because that makes the whole thing much clearer to us, and also helps you probably lose a bit less time.
Yeah, great.
So kind of final comment?
I have time, okay. You mentioned you want to tackle the dementia crisis, right, and reach the people that are at early stage, but your business model now is at the GP.
Yeah.
What's the vision?
The vision is that, so GP is still early stage because they haven't gone to the neurologist or the geriatrician yet, and that's really the focus, that in the primary care setting, people get screened every year, like breast cancer or regular screening after a certain age. And once they are at a certain level of risk, then you have different stages of intervention. So you can have, for medium risk, digital lifestyle-based interventions; for high risk, drug-based, pharma-based interventions.
So it's part of the normal yearly checkup, right, that you do in Singapore, for example?
Yeah.
And who's paying for it?
Right now we are charging the clinics and hospitals directly for like packages or a certain number of tests. Yeah. And then their commercial model with the patients can differ based on whether it's part of the health screening or a one-off screening test. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Adnan. Be sure to meet him in the break. Thanks, Adnan.